At 7 o'clock. My name's Dennis Nelson. I'm not Rick Roberts. He's enjoying himself on vacation. I'm sure it's well deserved. So I'll be handling the council meeting tonight. We'll start with our Pledge of Allegiance. If you will please stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, everybody should have had a chance to look over the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda or any modifications?
We do have two items to remove from the agenda, sir. Removal of item 7B, which was the second reading of annexation, application 2022A01, which was withdrawn by the applicant. We're also removing item 8C, application for rezoning, applicant Devia Group, also withdrawn by the applicant.
Any more changes to the agenda? Not. Need a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion properly approved and second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, that brings us to our public comments. Do we have any speakers?
We have one speaker signed up, Mr. Joel Larkin.
Larkin?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. My name is Joel Larkin. I'm with the law firm Sands, Larkin & Huff in Marietta, Georgia. I'm here subbing for my partner, Parks Huff, who I think many of you know. I'm here on item 8A, which is an application for a beer and wine license for a new convenience store to be constructed at the corner Ball Ground Highway and W.A. Amos Parkway, I believe it is, Drive. The applicant has plans in the process to build a brand new convenience store behind those pumps that have been sitting out there for years with no store behind them. He's been working with the staff. I think he has plans that have been approved and by the staff as far as meeting your architectural requirements. This application tonight is for the beer and wine license to go with the store. As you know, that requires approval of both the applicant and the location. The applicant has submitted all the required paperwork and gone through the background check and has passed all of those requirements. He's also submitted everything that's required for the property. It's properly zoned and it complies with all the applicable requirements for distance and otherwise. So I'm here tonight to respond to any questions that you have and provide any other additional information that you might need. And I thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on the list? No problem.
Mr. Alexander Denton.
Thank you. I rise to speak against the application that was just referenced, item 8A. My name is Alexander Denton. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Robbins, Alloy, Belafonte, Littlefield in Atlanta. Present on behalf of a group of residents who continue to oppose this application, just as they did the last time it was before you earlier this year. At that time, my colleague Rachel Gage spoke to you about a variety of concerns, and I'm here tonight to share with you that those same concerns remain. The application is substantially the same, and the result, denial, should be the same. When this application was before you earlier this year, you were presented with letters and petitions evidencing the broad opposition to this application on multiple grounds, some general and some specific. Generally, the commercial needs of the proposed development purports to address already are well met by existing businesses in Ball Ground. Residents across Ball Ground also are opposed to the proposed development at this particular site, which is situated prominently at the historic Ball Ground entrance. And residents immediately proximate to that site oppose the application and proposed development because they do not want a packaged alcohol store essentially in their front yards, which is what the proposal before you would allow. The intent of Section 4-53 of the Bald Ground Code of Ordinances is to protect the property rights of residents who, like the Dishroons, live close to a site proposed to be used to sell alcohol. And among the letters and petitions you previously received were statements of opposition from Ralph Dishroon, who, along with two of his relatives, live in the three houses immediately across A.W. Roberts Drive from the applicant's property. The Dishroons could not be more clear in their opposition to the application, and tonight I have presented an additional letter from Margie Dishroon, who owns the home at 135 A.W. Roberts Drive, confirming that their position in opposition to this application remains unchanged. And for all of the reasons you denied the prior version of this application, and for those discussed this evening, we ask that you deny the application now before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Denton. Have any other speakers? Anybody that did not sign up that wants to speak?
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm not familiar with your process. May I respond to those statements, or is that something that might happen later in the meeting?
Well, this is just a public comment session.
Didn't know if I could speak a second time.
I have no problem with you speaking a second time.
Thank you. I wasn't at the prior hearing, but I am familiar with what happened, and the speaker is mistaken. This is not the same application. The prior application was for a package store. This is merely for beer and wine license to go with a convenience store. It's a substantially different application. Mr. Huff has submitted two letters along with the application, one dated June 8th, where the applicant proposed to specifically agree not to make certain uses of the property. And that for various uses, including package store, vape shop.
Mr. Larkin, we're very familiar with it.
Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
this is an entirely different application.
It's not going to be a package liquor store. It's completely different.
So this application complies with all the requirements. It's my understanding that a large part of the opposition might be from competitors. But we do propose a first-class convenience store here, and there is a need in the community, or this gentleman wouldn't be investing this substantial sum of money. And again, I'm happy to respond to any questions that you have.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Larkin.
I do have a question.
Sure.
Mr. Larkin, is this right here, the picture of what your convenience, or the convenience store is going to be?
That is a rendering that we've discussed with the city. We're happy to discuss additional revisions if the city requires them or desires them.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because at the last council meeting, with the package store, there was going to be an additional, that was cut out. But is this the whole thing? And because there was going to be room for another business to be adjoining to this. So my question is this the whole building, or is there going to be room for the other business?
Okay, go ahead. I can address that.
Okay.
What came back was they're going just for the convenience store.
Okay.
There's not going to be additional retail space, anything else attached. There is additional property further north on their property that's being reserved for future use that would need to come back for anything to the city. But because of concerns from last time with vape shop and other issues, they're coming back C-store only.
Okay, so this is just nothing but the convenience store.
That's correct. This is not an attempt
Before
to.
was a 10,000 square foot building, now is only 4,500 square foot building.
Okay.
It's 4,500?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're down to announcements or informational items. Mr. Wilmarth, do you have anything?
Only announcement we have is June 25th. Come on out and join us, 7:30 for Fly Betty in City Park, followed at 9:45 p.m. For the fireworks show.
And our fireworks show is second to none. It really, really is good if you haven't seen it. Okay, consider approval of minutes. We have minutes of the May 17th work session and also the May 19th council meeting. Mr. Caudell, do we need to take those separate or can they go together?
They can go together.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Old business. First on the agenda, on the old business, is consider second reading of alcohol license. Applicant Kevin Todd Marin on behalf of the Pig and Pearl LLC, doing business as Dots Fine Wine and Craft, 280 Gilmer Ferry Road. Do we have a motion to approve the second reading of this alcohol license?
Can I ask a question?
Want to go through the
Do you
motion?
guys ever plan on doing anything in food in there too, or just always?
Charcuterie only to match with tastings for the wine, for the wine, that would be it. It won't be a food service outlet by any means.
Okay, I was just curious. Okay, thank you.
It's on the floor for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Christine. Do we have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nope. Okay. And B is off the agenda. We're going down to C. Consider second reading of an ordinance to amend and restate the city retirement plan.
Yes, sir, no changes since the first reading. This again is where we have amended the plan to go ahead and make a one-time contribution on the new plan to get it funded to a level of 67%. Also for a 3-year buyback for employees that were employed for 3 years prior to plan inception.
Okay, do we have any motion to approve?
Second.
Mr. Prettyman, and seconded by Ms. Rogers. All in favor? Or any discussion first, I'm sorry. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, new business. A, consider first reading of alcohol license. The applicant Siraj Ali on behalf of MS Inera Enterprises Incorporated, location 3010 Canton Highway, Suite B. We have any motions to approve?
That this is already,
Yes, ma'am. On this, the property has been a gas station in the past. It is zoned for it. It is was owned by a petroleum company that sold it for continued use as this. We did receive a letter of objection, as before, from a residence within the 150-foot mark. They did properly quote the ordinance of section 4-53 that establishes the 150-foot distance requirement. But that paragraph goes on to state, next to the last sentence, that this section shall not apply to residents located within commercial zones. The houses that have filed are zoned OIT, or highway overlay, which are commercial zones, and therefore the ordinance states that 150 feet is not to be considered within the commercial zones.
Okay,
I think,
motion approved by Ms. Rogers. We have a second. Second. All in favor, or any discussion, I'm sorry. Any further discussion?
I would like to business, or this, he definitely has a right on his property to, and he is within the ordinance and everything. So, I mean, it would be like if a person had their own property and wanted to build their own business and the community didn't like it, but he, it wouldn't be right to tell him that he couldn't have it. So, if that makes, I mean, it may not be what the community wants there, but he is definitely in his right to have it. So, that's my comment.
And I'd also like to state what Eric said, this has already been, property was zoned for this. We have not changed the zoning for this. So we're following what the zoning guidelines are there, so.
Okay. We have a first and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item B, consider first reading of annexation application 2022-A02, applicant Robert G. Magby, location TIN 03N03 034, address 7380 Ball Ground Highway. This is the first reading. Mr. Wilmarth, do we need a motion and approval for first reading?
We would need a motion to accept the first reading. Just some follow-up from the work session. We did go down and measure their perimeter fence. It is a 6-foot fence. Mr. Luley has had contact with them. They will be working to get one of the screens up on the fence, at least for the portion where it makes sense. When you get about 100 yards south of the Sage Hill entrance, the elevation of the road is such that it completely overlooks the fence. The only long-term plan changes they expressed that they would have would be the addition of one 15,000 square foot building that would sit directly behind the building that they have now. They sent Mr. Luley plans of it, of when it was originally forecasted to be built back in 2012. But the economy was what it was, and they don't know if they're ready to pull the trigger on that now either, but just saying that's the only other change they have forecasted for the property.
And that would be for like a commercial retail for? or
No,
just
ma'am, it's
more
proposed now more indoor storage for their lumber.
Okay.
I'll make a motion for the first reading.
Okay, we have a motion to consider first reading.
Second?
Second. All in favor? I'm sorry, any discussion? I always get that out of order. Sorry, I'm fairly new at this. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? First reading is passed. We are skipping, C is removed. Item D, consider adoption of growth boundary map. We have any?
Where we're
motion?
looking, I think everyone has been provided with a copy of this proposed map. We're not looking necessarily for an adoption tonight. We're looking for a consensus. If everyone is good with this map, we will go ahead and submit it to Cherokee County. Cherokee County is good with the map. We will then do the formal documents. And what this does is it identifies property so we know and so Cherokee County knows what is, and these are extremely long-range plans. Additionally, it should be noted that none of that property that's shown up there can actually come into the city of Ball Ground without the owner asking to come into the city, and would have to be contiguous. So this isn't just the Ball Ground's going to reach out and grab these areas. We cannot do that. What it does do in the agreement is anything on the border of this and anything within inside it that's not already in the city, the county and the city agree to work together for developments that either they are planning or we might be planning in that area. So if everyone is acceptable with this map, then Mr. Luley will get with the folks at Cherokee County and get the process started.
Okay. It requires a motion.
You want a motion on that, Darrell?
If it's just consensus, I don't think we need that.
Okay.
We'll need that when we actually enter the agreement.
We'll bring it back for adoption, hopefully next month.
Okay. That brings us down to 8E, consider acceptance of Old Canton Circle as public right-of-way.
This is Old Canton Circle. It is the 10 on 10 on Old Canton. It's the 10 cottages just north of downtown. Roadway is approximately 520 feet. The value of the roadway and accompanying sidewalk is $105,918 that would be added to the city's books. It was initially constructed with the intent to be private, but the residents there would rather it not be private and have asked to turn it over to the city. Normally, that is not something we would agree to without some substantial funding, but this was actually constructed to our standard when it went in. So it's got the 6-inch base, 2.5-inch binder, and 1.5 inch top coat. So it's a standard city road, and really no reason not to accept.
Same as D, we just, consensus?
No, sir, we would actually need a motion and a vote to accept this for city maintenance.
I'll make a motion to accept this.
Motion to accept,
Second.
second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 9, City Manager's Report.
Okay. Finance Director is on vacation, so I don't have the full finance report for you this evening. But the fund balances, the general fund comes in at $864,000, was splossed at $133,000. Fire, remembering, is a direct pass-through. Every dime we collect in fire goes directly to Cherokee County. It's at $435,000. Our utilities have recovered nicely this month and are back to $900 and almost $26,000 for a total of $2.35 million. We do have $40,000 remaining on the ARP funds, and they're now saying our next collection of funds from ARP should come at the end of this month now in the amount of $409,000. Our May expenses and revenues. General fund, our revenue for the month was at $93,000 against expenses of $116,000. Year to date, our revenue is at $1.65 million with expenses at $1.44 million. SPLOST, the revenue for May at $64,000 against expenses of $64,000. Year to date, revenue at $667,000 with expenses around $635,000. Utilities revenue for the month was at $355,000 against expenses of $129,000. Year-to-date revenue is $2.273 million against expenses of $1.786 million. Hard to believe it's audit season again. The audit team spent 3 days here at City Hall visiting last week for compliance and regulation. They come in, observe activities, cash handling procedures, policy enforcement, and those types of things over a 3-day period, and begin looking at the books. They will be back in September for probably a full week as they delve into all the different financial categories. We had the folks show up from our insurance provider earlier this week. They're reassessing the value on all city infrastructure, every building, every piece of water, sewer infrastructure, parkland, in a general inspection of conditions. So we anticipate having new premiums, as I'm sure they're going to be evaluating our properties at a higher level. Speaking of higher premiums, we got sticker shock. As it came in, cybersecurity is the big deal now. So many local governments getting hit, data compromised. Insurance for this, our premium went from $3,500 last year to $10,000 this year. We have been sharing with council the items before they would even insure us, the additional security procedures we had to put in place. All of those have been accomplished and are in place, but that was a cost of almost an additional $5,000 in additional security software and technical support. Capital projects. Police station doesn't look much different than it does last month, but a good bit has changed inside. Fortunately, we are on time. We are under budget by about $125,000. The window frames have been installed. Siding, they're saying now, should start Monday or Tuesday of next week to get the siding and the brick courses up. Fire lines are about 90% complete. The grid work is installed now for the drop ceiling, and electrical is about 80%. Traffic study, they've scheduled completion for June 15th. As soon as we know that they have physically completed it, we'll schedule an initial meeting with the Roads and Streets Committee to receive the report, and then a full report at work session for Mayor and Council. Old Dawsonville Road, we did the 2 storm crossings. This is what came out of the first crossing. As you can tell, Old Dawsonville is hard to dig under. And I just like unusual things. So this next picture, it's a piece of marble that was under the roadway where the water was running through a rotted part of the drain and out into the marble. And the water erosion is what has caused that in the bottom of that slab of marble. So it's amazing what water can do when it starts running in the wrong place. But right now we're back with gravel and GAB patch at both locations. We had to cancel concrete for today because everything is still just too wet. Gets dried out, we'll get concrete on. Once the curb, gutter, and sidewalk portions are complete, towards the end of summer, we'll get resurfacing scheduled. The guardrail project at Old Canton Road and Commerce Lane has been completed. So anybody familiar with driving by there, that looks a lot different now and actually has a very small shoulder to the road, but it's a much safer area now. The Lantern Walk Crosswalk project, we did return to GDOT. We've asked them to include that in their LMIG funding on the rapid response, which for them is 2 to 3 years. But when it came back that the labor costs to install that were estimated at $140,000, they were kind of offering to pay if we put it off 2 or 3 years. It's worth it to put that project off for the amount of use that it will receive. Downtown crosswalks, we are exploring the need to possibly change vendors. We like to keep all of our signs looking the same, but we're having such a difficulty getting the last set in and the one part we need to be able to complete the crosswalk by the ice cream shop that we may have to go with a little bit different brand for somebody that can actually deliver us a product. Veterans Memorial, you see all the material out there behind it. They're supposed to slide the gazebo off of the slab tomorrow morning, and the block mason will begin working his magic on Monday, estimating 2 weeks to have the wall portions all complete, which time we'll take the final measurements for marble and get the slabs en route and get the seals on the way. Turn lane expansion, yes, ma'am.
I did have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When's the anticipated date or time that this will be on the city website to be able to purchase bricks for the memorial?
To purchase the bricks, we still have to locate the engravable brick. That's the last thing that goes in because that's actually the floor of the monument. So we're probably still a month and a half away from that. The turn lane expansion, if you've noticed, the signs have gone up on State Route Business 5. So we anticipate them coming in around the 15th, get started on the right turn lane expansions. That work will be performed by Baldwin Paving.
And that's 372, not 327, right?
Missed that again, didn't I?
You did. I think that came up in a work session.
Water and sewer, 2 months in a row, all stations remain at 100% capable. So we're excited about that. Good job by our staff there. And we don't like buying pumps. Expensive. We have issued the notice to proceed to Townsend Pipeline. This is a small picture. This is just a 4-inch unit, but you've heard us talk about the 8-inch pressure reducing valve we'll be installing on Old Dawsonville Road. It'll go in along with the surge valve. Anticipated cost will be between $35,000 and $40,000. But what this will do is two things. It'll deliver a consistent flow of pressure. As long as there's pressure behind it, it's not going to allow a pressure surge beyond it. And that's a problem we've had when we've been on the Etowah River source, that we actually can see spikes varying within a minute of 40, 45 pounds of pressure. And when that happens, we can burst lines and cause damage to the system. So this piece of equipment should resolve that issue. We'll have a surge valve with it, which will actually spew water out when a water hammer occurs. It won't be much, but it'll push out quickly 10, 15 gallons of water, but it'll save the line from the compression. Once we get that in, and that's the priority, to get that in so we can convert Old Dawsonville to the Etowah source, we will be taking the old Kenton Road water tank out of service. It'll be out of service for 4 to 6 weeks. It'll have to have a complete interior relining. We're also going to be rebuilding the roof of the tank this go around and making repairs to the ladder on the exterior, then finish up with a total painting of the exterior. And that is normal, supposed to be done about every 10 years for the relining of the interior of the tank. Leak detection, we had our first meeting with McKim and Creed. We expect pricing next week. We're having them price us by the day, by the week, in an entire system review and looking for leaks. One of the first places we'll start, if you've seen a lot of fire department activity, and we're not throwing off on our firefighters, we love them. But when they get out and start exercising the fire hydrants, you've seen a lot of that over the last couple of weeks. The very bottom of that, you see where they've got, it's labeled as a drain hole. We call them weep holes. But if they don't get that hydrant cut off just right, we continue to run water underground that nobody knows about. So they'll continue as they go through. First thing they'll start with is a listening device to listen to every fire hydrant. They'll be able to tell if those weep holes are active or not active. That'll be the first place they start. Then they will begin with the logger system of actually putting listening devices on the various valves and hydrants around the system, and it will triangulate the location of leaks within the system. And they claim they'll tell us how many gallons a minute that we're losing in each leak. So we're interested to see what it pans out like. Under parks, we have a new website coming. Been working with Councilmember Benefield on this. We're going to create a clearinghouse where parents can find a location for basically any sporting activity in Cherokee County that their kids might want to be involved in. This will provide a link directly from our page directly into whether it be Cherokee Youth Basketball, Cherokee Youth Football, Creekview Feeder Football, the Creekview Softball, all the various programs that bring in. It'll be on our website, but the parents will have one place to go and find numerous activities for their kids to be able to get involved in sports. Next item in parks, we have our first meeting with Gordian, and they will be pricing the rope bridge over Long Swamp Creek at Roberts Lake Park. If you recall, we own 25 acres on each side of the creek, but the creek in places about 6 or 8 foot deep, so it's not just a nice way to cross. So looking at a rope bridge to go through there, we have that pricing. We'll begin grant writing for that. We also met with Johnson Locks on the community center rebuild, so we expect the proposal and pricing on this within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Public safety, we're really happy to say that our 6th officer began work this week. That's the largest our department has ever been, so we thank Mayor and Council for their support on funding this. The department responded to 605 calls for service in the month of May, issued 55 traffic citations. Planning and zoning is still working on GIS to assist on the lead copper rules, zoning ordinance update, and also at your places tonight, each of you have 3 draft ordinances that will be on the agenda for next month. One is the litter control ordinance that will require, as Cherokee County does, the empty and full tarping of garbage trucks that are running to and from the landfills. The other one will require the tarping of the poultry trucks that come through town. It's also update to the alcohol ordinance, as we discussed, to establish distances for liquor stores. And the third ordinance, convenience store ordinance. On development reviews, planning and zoning continues to work with Farmers Crossing, Marble Tree. Marble Tree is the one that's just south of the 4-way stop at Howell Bridge that's underway now. Old Mill Phase 2, I believe will likely go away. We are requiring them to submit a Phase 3 environmental to make sure that items that were known to be on that property years ago have been remedied. Cowart Heights, Davia will now be dropped, and Malone's Pond, that is the Fitz property on Old Dawsonville Road. And the other thing in planning and zoning is we ordered our plotter. So you all will get larger maps to look at and diagrams to look at when it comes down to this. Are there any questions?
I have a quick one. On the relocation of the gazebo, is it gonna go on the other side of the little creek with the footbridge being
Still
built?
working on that, but for right now, we're getting it off the pad so they can get to work. So it's not going it's not leaving the site.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions for Eric? Okay, so we get down to item 10, mayor's comments. I'm not the mayor, but I do have some comments. You know, all of us up here wanted this job, and we went door to door, and we earned a lot of votes. So, you know, we're finding this is a learning experience. Thank goodness we have expertise on our city, such as Eric and Mr. Caudell. The city attorney is here for us, and when we look at all of these things, all of these items, all of these zoning requests, alcohol, we run it through every test that we can to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Sometimes it's not the popular thing, but it is always going to be the right thing legally. I just wanted to put that out there. You know, you hear a lot on social media, and you know, we all love this town. That's why we're here. We love for it to stay small, but everybody wants to move to Ball Ground. So what we do is we just have to use our legal guidelines and city ordinances and make sure that we do the best we can to get the best quality of housing here. It's a tough job. It really is. And I'll admit myself, I had no idea it was going to be something that was very time consuming and required a lot of effort, a lot of reading, a lot of research. Everybody up here does that. And we do take the job very seriously. We know we're not going to make everybody happy, but we're going to do the right thing in the end. And that was all. Well, I wanted to add also that I thank our city workers, because we couldn't have this wonderful city if we didn't have such good people working here. And I appreciate them every day. They get things done. We are the ones that you contact if you can't get your satisfaction through the city, and we'll make sure it happens. I've never had an issue. I go to Eric, and if Eric, I ask him something, he gets it taken care of. That's the way we work for you guys, and that's the way we're going to do. They're here to work for you to make your town a better place to be. Vicki, any comments?
No comments.
You sure?
Surprise?
Yeah, I am surprised. Chris?
I couldn't agree more with what you just said, trying to do the best that we can do. Maybe not, in some people's eyes, making the right decisions all the time, but we look at every aspect of every decision that we make. And sometimes it makes some people really happy, and other times not so much. But we are always there for you to do the best that we can do for you.
Lee?
All I can say is here.
Okay, great. Mr. Caudell?
Nothing from this end.
Eric?
Spoke enough, sir. Thank you.
Do we have a need to go into executive session?
No, sir, we don't.
Okay. That wraps up the agenda. We just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? We are adjourned.
Who had the second?